Also something you may like to
Oh yes. White of the horizon.
Right. Do you want some water, Martin? Or would you like sparkling or still?
Yeah, thanks.
Still or sparkling?
Good evening, everybody. Can you all hear me, including at the back? That's great. Gents over to the right. All the microphones on the top table working okay? Oh, hello. I've got the thumbs up, so we're ready to go. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to King's Home, and welcome back for the latest in our fans forums. The first one, I believe, for approximately 18 months. So time has flown since we last sat here. Obviously, the majority of the talking is going to be done by the gentleman to my right. We've got David Humphries, our Director of Rugby, Martin St Quinton, our club chairman, Stephen Wall, our Chief Executive Officer, and Johan Ackerman, our new head coach. We're going to be streaming this live, so we will take some questions live, but I will obviously give priority to the questions that are put forward by the people in this room. We have a roving mic out there. I believe Helen has a microphone, so Helen, blonde lady over there. If you've got a question, just raise your hand and Helen will get the microphone to you as quickly as possible. We'll try and run probably for an hour and a half, something like that, as we normally do. We can go on longer, of course, if there are still questions, but I think that should hopefully give the majority of you the opportunity to put forward the questions that you want the answers to. Ordinarily, I'd throw it open to the room straight away, but I believe, Martin, you have a few words to say just to get us off and running for this evening.
Yeah, thanks, Duncan. I just wanted to say how delighted we all are to have Johan Ackerman here with us this evening. Stephen Vaughan and David Humphries identified Johan as the finest coach in world rugby a number of months ago, and we set our stall out to try and persuade Johan to come to the club. and they both did an outstanding job of persuading Johan to come. And so I'd like us all, if you would, to give him a really warm Gloucester welcome.
Shall we go now while we're ahead? Okay, does anybody have a question to kick things off? Anybody like to start us off this evening? This is where it always goes quiet. Yes, we have a taker. Helen, just over this side in the middle.
Thank you very much. Are we going to sign another hooker? As we only got 2 main hookers at the moment. And that's to David. That's to David then.
I think we're all aware that it's an area of the squad that we have been looking to strengthen. I would also say that the last time we sat here 18 months ago, we talked very much about the importance of our academy, the importance of bringing some young players through. And currently we have 2 players who represented England under 20s at the recent Rugby World Championship. So what we've got to make sure is that anybody that we want to bring in has to be significantly better and add more to the squad than those 2 players will. And given the opportunity, none of us know how well they could do. There are many examples over the course of the last few seasons that players who have got an opportunity due to injury have come in and excelled. And we believe those 2 players have a huge future with Gloucester Rugby, but we are certainly looking to strengthen our squad if the opportunity arises.
Okay, off and running. Anybody else? Helen, just your left.
Can you give us some sort of update on artificial pitches, please?
Stephen? Is that on pitches in general or out here as well?
Just out there. I was going to say there's a nice one in Hartpury. Yes, I don't know if you're aware, but we're taking a review at the moment on our pitch for a number of reasons, but one obvious reason being the state that the pitch gets into for probably about 8 weeks of the season. There's no getting away from it. It's one of the only sand-based grass pitches still in Premiership rugby. There's an argument that it doesn't allow us to play a certain type of game. There's an argument that we can't train on it enough. There's been countless times when David and I have had to have conversations around having the team run here or not the day before a big match, and that's not right really to be playing with the same level of kind of familiarity of King's Home as other teams. So there are a number of reasons why we need to look at the pitch. At the moment we're probably maybe 3/4 of the way through a review on what a replacement pitch could look like. There are many different surfaces out there. There are, if you look at Northampton and Leicester, they've just replaced their pitches with just normal grass pitches. However, they'll only last 2 years to 3 years maximum, whilst they look at other surfaces, because they'll just unfortunately just get destroyed by the amount of rugby that they'll play on them. And they also do concerts and other events too, because you have to be commercial to ensure that you can put up enough money to pay the full salary cap, and that's exactly what we do here. There are various other pitches then. If you look at the likes of the Desso pitches, which are at Twickenham and the Millennium Stadium at Bristol and at Exeter, those are extremely expensive pitches. You're talking really with the undersoil heating and the lights and everything that you need with them, probably about £1.5 million. And on top of that, then you need the lights and everything else that goes with them. What do they give you more? They're probably the player's choice in terms of what the pitch feels like, but you can probably train a little bit more on them, but not much at all. You're still going to maintain them in exactly the same way, and they're extremely expensive. And there's a reason why only certain clubs can afford those types of pitches. You've then got the all-weather surfaces, which are becoming more popular. So at the moment, Newcastle, Saracens and Worcester all have all-weather surfaces. And, when you look at Saracens and the style of rugby that they can play on that, with regards to, being European champions, and, I know they didn't win last year, but, they are the best team in the country, in my opinion, then it certainly gives you food for thought, because you can train on the pitch 3-4 times a week. You can make it a real home advantage. You can also, on a match day, we would love to have a local game on our pitch before. We'd like to have the women's team playing more on our pitch, and we'd like to do more things to commercialise our pitch, which means we can spend more on the playing squad. So it's a viable option that we've got to look at. Not everyone's going to like that if we do get to that point, but what we can't do is be. We've got to work in fact. We've got to work in the future, and we've got to work on what we can do around the community, around what's best for the playing department, and what's going to enable us to commercialise it, so we can make sure that we can continue paying a full salary cap and the marquee players for the future. So we expect to have a decision on what we're going to do with playing surface within the next kind of 2 or 3 months, and then when we have made a decision, if we are going to do something, then it'll be at the end of this season, and we'll communicate that to the fans then.
Okay, following on from that, we had a question for a supporter on email, Steve, and it's probably one for yourself, one for Martin. And it said that last week Northampton Saints announced a loss for the first time in 16 years, I believe. And obviously, we announced that we'd make a loss recently as well for the first time in a while. Their question is, how difficult is it now in modern rugby union with the increased salary cap to actually run an organisation that can make a profit? Is it possible?
It's perfectly possible to. It's perfectly possible to break even and run a salary cap team. I think it is very difficult to make a profit, in all honesty. But this last season we budgeted to break even, and we didn't achieve that. But we did finish 9th in the league, and had we finished 5th or 6th in the league, the crowds would have been much stronger towards the latter half of the season, and we almost certainly would have broken even. This year we've done a lot of work on our budgets. We're spending £1 million more on the playing squad this season than we did last year, but we still think we can break even if we have a reasonable season.
Okay, do we have a question from the floor? Okay, Helen's on her way.
Good evening, everybody. Looks like I've got the privilege of asking Johan his first question. And basically, it's you've arrived obviously a little bit later than we would have liked. Are you happy that you think the team is going to progress at the start of the season, or do you think we may have to wait a little bit longer till sometime near Christmas before it's playing the way you want?
So you want a late Christmas present? No, I mean, good evening everyone. It's a privilege to be here tonight, and thanks for that welcoming, Martin, and to everybody here. If that's going to be so loud, hopefully I can't wait for Friday night to hear that. Obviously we want to perform from the word go. That will be ideal. But, we can just do as much on the field. There's that fine balance between what I want to achieve in a short period of time, but also working with the players and keeping them physically and mentally fresh so that they can still perform. It wasn't ideal for me to come in so late, as I've got limited time with the guys, and the other factor was that we was physically a week before we played our first match again. So if you go 2-3 hours on the field, it will spill over to the games. We'll see tired players. So that balance between getting the things that I want to do, getting to know, to think that how I think, is unfortunately take time. But I know any supporter doesn't want to hear the world build, and doesn't want to hear, we'll wait and we'll see. So obviously we're trying to do it as fast as we can. But I can't say when we're going to click, but the one thing I can say is you'll see a side that will perform with their hearts, knowing that they represent a proud supporters, and that we represent a club that we want to make proud through the efforts and through the commitment.
Okay, thank you, Johan. Do we have another question from the floor? Okay, we'll take it from online. Steve, it's a question for yourself. Out to our left, we can start seeing some new advertising boards on top of the shed. The question is, why did the club sell the naming rights to the shed? And I'm not sure whether you'll answer the second part. How much is that deal worth?
Not enough for the grief that I've taken over it. anybody that knows me will know the answer is a very honest answer. You know, we work to a virtuous circle, I guess, in this club and in most sports, you know, and if you've got a team that's performing well and supporters are happy and sponsors are happy, you'll get more investment and then you can invest more in that team. And, you know, we didn't perform as we'd like to perform, and, you know, we don't have a lot of collateral available at King's Own for sponsors, but I've always said that should the right partner come along, which was part of a bigger deal, then, you know, King's Own Stadium, naming rights even, we're up for grabs, and the Shed, as much as it's an absolute iconic part of rugby and the rest of it, what I can't be is an emotional supporter when it comes to making decisions like this, because, you know, if there's 150 people in this room, you know, how many of you are going to say to your pal on Saturday, do you fancy coming to meet in the Green King IPA Shed before the game? I'm not holding you to that. What I am holding you to do is to come and support us, and, you know, for you to support the best possible team, we need to be commercially successful at the club, and Green King represented a wonderful opportunity. They're a great brand. They do a lot in rugby already, and, you know, the product range that they give us, and I know it's all, everybody will prefer one pint over the other. It's quite funny, actually. I've never had so many complaints about Doom Bar in my life, and then we've changed it, and I've never known so many bloody Doom Bar fanatics. So you're only here to test me out, aren't you? But, you know, we've now got 4 craft ales, we've got 2 IPAs, we've got Singer, we've got Bud Light, we've got Stella. You know, we keep trying to get the best product range for you, and also a long-term deal, which has given us security over a number of years. But, you know, do I think having some branding there and supporting IPA, Green King IPA, is going to make any difference to the noise that comes out of the Shed? Of course it's not. So I can't make any apologies for it, because I would do it again, because it's the right thing for the club, and you've got to trust me that we've got to do these deals to make sure that we can continue to give Johan and David the best tools that they can to get us up the pitch, up the league.
And on that note, and I'm sure there's people out there who would think of asking this question, are there any plans to name King's Own, to sell the name and rights to the stadium?
Well, we've got Anne Summers lined up at the moment. So no immediate plans. We're not out pitching King's Own to anybody, but should the right partner come along, we will have the conversation with them. But no, we're not out pitching it to anybody at the moment.
Thanks, Steve. Do we have a question from the floor? Ellen, there's somebody at the front here. Oh, there's a battle. Sorry, we'll come to you next, sir.
Good evening. Question for Johan. We read in the press that you've been watching how Gloucester's performance has been going on towards the end of last season until you got here. Having seen 2 games played by a split team on Friday night, do they live up to your expectations?
No, like I said earlier, you know, I think the gentleman asked me about, you know, when will this side perform, and obviously, like I said, we want to perform from the word go. That's, I think, everybody's expectation. But to answer your question is that obviously, yes, I did follow them the moment I made the decision to come, and saw things that, you know, I knew it's going to be a work in progress. And then eventually when I came here and started working with the players, that's the aim, to be a well-rounded side. And after the 2 matches that we played, obviously the first match showed a lot of things for us to work on. Much better performance on the weekend. But again, you know, I don't a big believer in reading into warm-up matches. The real thing happens when you play, when it counts, when there's a result that counts, and that pressure and that decision making is under that pressure. But what I can say is that when we were down with a yellow card and we were 14 guys and Scarlets were attacking us and the guys kept them out, and they really fight for each other on that goal line, that gave me that showed me that this team's got character. And if we can tap into that character and we can get them united, like I know we are busy, and, you know, we're going to get a team that really cares for each other, then I do believe, regardless of where we lack in talent, we'll make up in heart.
Thank you.
David, I think this is probably a question for you. It's from Lauren Chalk on Twitter, who says, will you make sure that the players clap the fans at away games, even if the team lose?
Look, I think it's something that we're all very conscious of, that we're wonderfully supported here, but we also are very fortunate with the number of people who come and watch us right throughout the country, and that includes in European competition. And generally, I think the players do acknowledge that, and I hope they acknowledge it. Certainly from our point of view, it's something we've talked about before. But I guess that the biggest thing for us all is whenever we get performances that are right, when we get the players playing the way they can, I think we all go away from those games feeling that we've enjoyed being there and been part of what is hopefully going to be a successful season ahead.
Thank you, David. Do we have a question here on the floor? Thanks, Alan.
Hi, sort of linked to that, can you tell me whether the European shirts will be ready this season in time for us to wear them for the first European game?
Yes, they will.
Thank you, Stephen.
That's right. Now, the alternative shirts will be out in the first or second week of September, so just around the corner now. So yeah, it'll be more than in time. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, right in front, Helen.
Hi, it's two questions if I may. First one is, what do you think the medium and long-term ramifications of the Altrad deal falling through will have on the club? And secondly, linking performance on the pitch and the off-field matters, off-field revenue and stuff like that, how confident are you that you're going to be able to retain the likes of Ross and people like John further out of contract this season?
Well, there was two questions. Let's deal with them separately. I don't think the Altrad deal falling away is actually. I don't really regard it as damaging. I just regard it as a missed opportunity, frankly. It's kind of ancient history, really. It's, you know, we've kind of put that behind us. It would have been good if they'd come in. They could have invested money into the stadium and into the naming rights and various things, but it's not going to happen. So I think it's just a missed opportunity. We've got to move on. The second question is really one for somebody else. I think
I'll answer you on that one. Is obviously, you know, success on the field will assist on both those questions. But for me, hopefully, in the next few months, what we're going to achieve, not just on the field but off the field. You know, I do believe a player, if he's happy, if he enjoys where he is, and he gets honesty and openness, and he knows exactly where he stands, sometimes, you know, hopefully that will think, well, is it worth going to a new environment where I'm not happy? And that's part of me. I'm a believer of you know, nothing is by accident. There's more than a reason why I'm here. And if it is to make a change in somebody's life, then hopefully I've achieved that goal. I know I'll be judged by performance, but to me, coaching it's about people. It's not about just results. And if I can build that relationship with, hopefully, with my players, that they will feel this is a place that they want to stay, and the people with the money will make sure that they stay there.
And can I just add on to that, as part of the discussions that you and I have had over the last few months, just in terms of what we need to change and how we need to improve things here. I think, Johan, you mentioned that in the last 4 years in the Lions, there hasn't been one player that's left the club. So that's a huge indication of the respect and how much they enjoy it. And that's part of the challenge that we face. But we also work in a very, very different market, very different environment, where there's lots of other clubs who are trying to poach lots of our players. And the challenge, I think, very simply is if we're successful, and as Johan said, create the right place for our players to achieve their ambitions on the field and off the field, we'll have a much less of a turnover than what we've had over the course of the last 3 seasons.
Okay, that possibly leads on to a question we've received on Twitter from Anthony Russell, He says that, have to confess that after last season it felt that the club lacked identity on the pitch. How do we change this?
I'll try and answer it in a very simple way. Whenever you don't win, particularly with the nature of some of the defeats that we had last year, people are always trying to find the reason why did you lose, especially when it repeated itself many times. And I think if we talk to all of you at a straw poll in the room, straw poll at the top table as to why that happened, we'd all have a very different reason. And yes, there are certain people, some of the supporters that we've met out and about over the course of the summer have talked about that identity. But I think really from the moment that we met Johan, understood what he's about, understood what makes him tick, I think in 6 months' time and 12 months' time, there will be nobody questioning the identity of this team. There'll be nobody questioning the heart of this team. There'll be nobody questioning that players don't give 100% on the pitch every time they pull on the jersey. And I think that's an issue we've addressed simply by Johan being here.
Thanks, David. No pressure.
Evening, gents. Great pleasure to be here. Question for the whole panel, really. In terms of Gloucester, I mean, Gloucester's a sort of a small city. To what extent do you think we're limited in terms of progress by the sort of demographics? You've got a limited catchment, you've got Bath down the road, Bristol down the road. How much does that sort of limit the club in terms of progressing compared to, say, a Newcastle or a Leicester, where you've got a massive city with all the resources you can tap into?
I'll answer that. From my opinion, is it doesn't hamstring us at all. We may have, I think we've got something like the second smallest amount of academy players we can pick into in terms of school players who I think be between the ages of something like 11 and 16 in terms of the amount of people that we can pick. However, the difference being in you talked about Newcastle there, for example. And Newcastle's catchment is outrageous. It's all the way from Northumberland and it's to North Yorkshire and it goes all the way across Cumbria and all the rest of it. However, there aren't that many rugby players. So we are condensed in terms of, we get a lot of people. If you go to around the parks around Gloucestershire and everything else, there are rugby posts up everywhere. So Worcester, if you take Worcester, for example, who've got a 3 times bigger demographic than we have, most 2/3 of that demographic only play football. So I don't think we'd ever use that as an excuse in terms of our limit. I think that we've got a good demographic. It's a rugby playing demographic. It is, and in terms of our fan base as well, it's the average member that we have travels 19 miles to come to a game. So it isn't just Gloucester City where we get supporters from. We get a lot of people from, whether it's the Forest, the Cotswolds, and further afield as well, Cheltenham, Cirencester, Stroud, and even East Wales, Bristol. So and I think we have got a very good traditional rugby playing area. So I don't think it hamstrings us either commercially or on the pitch personally. And I think our academy is performing particularly well at the moment. It's a gold standard academy from an RFU perspective. Neil McCarthy did some great work. Richard Whiffin's carrying on that great work. The relationship we've got with Hartpury College has never been stronger. You can just see that the lads coming through now, the Kieran Knights, the Henry Walkers, the Joe Mullises, Alex Savills, and Harry Randalls, Will Safe, all these guys that are coming through. A lot of them are homegrown players, which is testament really to the great work that we've done from a local perspective. And there's a good conveyor belt coming through. So I don't think we have any excuses around the demographic that we're in personally, but I don't know if David's got a different opinion to that.
It's a very similar opinion that we are much smaller numbers, but the advantage of that is, as Steve said, because we're in such a small area, it allows us to work very intensively with those players, particularly coming through our under-16 programme. And I think that's one of the biggest changes over the course of the last 2 or 3 years. We have invested very heavily in our academy because we all believe at this top table that the future of the club is based very much on the ability of our academy to bring young players through who go on to represent Gloucester but also go on to play international rugby. And I do, that's the point Steve made. Hartpury College is probably the best rugby university in the country, and that's been a huge asset to this club in terms of the number of players that it has produced. But we've always said, instead of just relying on them, to produce the players for us, we've got to work with them so that there's 2 streams. One of them still bringing players through, but also making sure that our academy, with players who are independent from Hartpury, do come through and give them the opportunity to play out here as well.
Great, thank you. Questions come through on Twitter. It's one for Johan. It's from a gentleman called Mike Thomas. He said, Johan, was it an easy decision for you to persuade Ruan to join the club?
Did you just tell it?
There was a rumour that pocket money was stopped, but it's not really
obviously, he was in a similar position to me, that, you know, it was quite a difficult one for him in the sense that he was, you know, built good relationships over the last few years with the players. He was mentored by, you know, by quality people like Warren Whiteley and Jaco Kriel and those guys. That's as a youngster, as a 20-year-old, you know, he learned basically values and some hard work ethics. That's the kind of players they are. There's no shortcuts with them, and he had the privilege to be part of that setup and almost rebuilding phase. So, you know, because he's still also young, he's quite emotional about, you know, about the whole thing, about, you know, he's letting down them. But eventually, you know, I think after we spoke, I spoke to him, I said to him, you know, life is sometimes, you know, all about opportunities. You know what you've got there. You've been in 2 Super Rugby finals as a very young player. You know, he's got almost nothing to lose if I can use that. That if he plays here for 2-3 years or whatever, you know, you can always go back. He's young enough to go back if that's if he feels he needs to go back. And so, you know, obviously after a lot of decision making, I wanted to leave it for himself. I didn't really want to influence him, because I do believe you know, it's like any player. If you run onto the field, it must come from in you. Why are you doing this? It can't be you do it because of your brother or you do it because of your family. It must be, you know, they can be part of the motivation, but it must come from in you. And you know, obviously that's how we felt. That, you know, yes, it was a disappointment losing the final. I think that would have helped if we won the final. Would have said, oh, you know, that's a box tick. Now I can go. But easier. It's going to be as for me, it's going to be a change. New players, new names, new environment. But I do believe if he you know, come and we see the best of him, hopefully he'll add value to the squad.
Thanks, Johan. Question from the floor? Yeah. Thanks, Alan.
This is a plea to Stephen. I'm speaking on behalf of the disabled in front of the old JS stand. We've got a lovely path right around the stadium, except in front of the JS stand. At the end and beginning of matches, the people with wheelchairs have got a real struggle because it's like a road. The stewards were going to take this up with you. I don't know whether they have, but I promised them that I would put this to you to try and see if you can do something about it.
Okay. Just so I can actually grab that exact detail that you're looking for, Helen, do you mind getting one of the guys just to write down the exact details of what that is? It hasn't been brought to my attention at the moment. It may have gone to the operations guys and they decided they could deal with it, but can we just capture that, and then I guarantee I'll get back to you. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Helen's another question at the front here, and then somebody a couple further back.
Question for Johan. After Friday's encouraging displays, do you have the team in your head worked out for Friday? Or are you still thinking?
No, the side is basically selected. So yeah, so obviously it wasn't easy. There were some good performances, and there will always be disappointment. You know, you can only fit 23 in, and you know, like anything in life, there will be some agreements, there may be some disagreements. Yeah. But you know, we have to get to, because it's a short week, we had to get clarity into the players' heads of where they fit in, so that they can start training that positions, and also especially your bench guys, that they can swap in, and because sometimes the guy on the bench cover more than one position. Yeah, so obviously it was, like I said, some tough decisions that was made.
And just one other thing, I'd like to give credit to the strength and conditioning staff who do an amazing job.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Helen, there's a gentleman just back there with his hand up.
Thank you. This is for Johan. First, the bad news: the weather isn't always like this, I'm afraid.
I thought I brought good weather.
Referees. Kingsholm is well known for being a training ground for referees. Regrettably, not all of them take on board instructions during the game. But have you noticed between Southern Hemisphere and your short time in Northern Hemisphere any different interpretations that might affect in terms of how you're coaching the teams?
You know, there's rules against speaking against referees. No, I mean, obviously, I saw a few things that, you know, was different from the games that I experienced. But, you know, even a referee, I think, you know, obviously will prepare better and be mentally sharp and well rehearsed in what to expect from the teams once he's really down, because I know in my experience when we played warm-up games back home, then the referees know that the players want to have a little bit more of lenience on certain things, as you don't want to have a warm-up game where guys want to test combinations and get match fitness to stoppage every second, breakdown or whatever. So yeah, so maybe they're not as onto certain things, where once it's into the league, they're quite accurate and stuff. So it's on the day, you know, you have to rely and have to trust that the officials will get most of the calls correct. I've got a simple philosophy, you know, you can only control what you can't control. We can't control the weather, we can't control the supporters outside if we play away from home. We can't control the referee, but we can control when we've got the ball, or we can control when we haven't got the ball, our actions and our accuracy and those things. So if we can focus on that and not, you know, get emotional about the referee. I know it's different for the supporters and it's different definitely for the coaches in the coaches box. But, you know, for the players it's quite important. But there will be a difference looking at, you know, especially when you look at test level and a French referee come and, you know, officiating a test back home and stuff. There is differences that you have to adjust. We can speak obviously to the referees beforehand. We can analyze them and see where they strong, where do they give their most penalties, and try to adjust accordingly. But I must be honest if I say that I, you know, almost prepare myself that I don't communicate too much with them and rather let them do what they, you know, must do, because sometimes you can almost get so dragged into that battle that you take your focus off of what needs to be done.
Another one for Johan, I'm afraid. You're regarded as one of the best coaches in the business, and we're delighted to have you here. But apart from the wonderful climate and the pocket money, what led you here?
It was definitely the climate. I just want to go back to the previous question. I just want to say, you know, obviously I do respect all referees for the job they do. Thinking that, you know, you one person that makes a ruling, and then there's millions and thousands of others that make a ruling. So, you know, so they've got an uncompromising job. And then what got me was Martin and David. And I must be honest about that. You know, when I met them for the first time and I walked away, there was something that, you know, that excited me about, you know, the fact that they made the effort to meet me, the fact that they were open of my role that's going to be here. And, you know, just I just got a feeling of that the honest people that they are, and that's how I like to, if I can call it, do business. You know, no hidden agendas. I say things as it is. I laugh if I want to laugh in the passage. I shout, and I do whatever I want to do. You know, this is who I am, and I've got that feeling that, you know, yes, Martin is a businessman. He wants success, you know, so he's not going to let go the pressure. So, but then again, we're all human beings, and we know that you know, life is not always fair. And even when I was chucked in the Lions in 2013, out of Super Rugby, no sponsors, etc., you know, there was a lot of trust and faith in me, and I had that ability to do with the team that I felt was good. And I just saw a new challenge, a new excitement, similar to Gloucester. You know, nobody was really giving them a chance. Saw the prediction that we are actually going to go down instead of up, so that's good. And therefore, you know, that excited me, that I can work with honest people, I can be myself, and it's going to be a new experience. Challenge myself as a coach, working with people from New Zealand, working with people from Scotland, Wales, England, all over, and I don't want to regret that one day. I don't want to go stay in my comfort zone and then 10 years, 15 years later say, I wonder how it would have been to coach Gloucester. So obviously I did my homework after that when they met me and saw it's a club, it's a rugby town. Adding to Steve's question or answer, you know, it's a place where rugby is the heart and the soul of the town, where they either got a bad weekend or a good weekend, you know, and we can make that, we can change that, we can inspire people on the field, and it's similar to what happened in Joburg. So there was a lot of correlation in the relationship that I saw myself. And again, like I said, you know, thanks for that compliment, but, you know, it's not about me, it's about that. So it's going to be a whole team effort. There's a lot of management that I'm going to rely on, and you guys as supporters, we're going to need you guys as well, and we're going to get criticized, I know that, but to me the most important thing is that it's a journey that I'm going to not run away from. I'm going to give it my full go, and hopefully we will have more laughs than cries.
Got a question for Martin. Martin, you're not one of the more high-profile club owners. When we play a televised game, you don't have your own dedicated TV camera focused on you, for example. Can we just ask how much involvement you have in running the club on a day-by-day and week-by-week basis?
Well, I'm very involved in the day-to-day running of the club. I mean, clearly Steve's the chief executive here, so he makes all the decisions. But we do speak 2-3 times a day, I should imagine, and I'm over here at the club a couple of times a week and go to pretty well every game. So I think I try not to interfere, and I try to let the director of rugby direct the rugby and the chief executive run the show. But I am very involved.
Excellent, thanks, Martin. On the subject of director of rugby, David, with Johan newly installed as head coach, how's the dynamic going to work between yourself and him? Is it going to be very similar to yourself and Laurie in the past 3 years?
With the circumstances, with the change that happened last year, I guess it allowed us all, Martin, Steve and I, to sit down and see what we wanted to do, what direction we wanted to take the club, what people were available. And we knew that Johan was our preferred candidate. It was then a case of making sure that we were able to put a structure around him that allowed him to coach and prepare the team to the very best, to make sure that when the players step out in the pitch, they don't have any excuse for not performing. So I think the rules have evolved over the course of the last few months. Johan and I are still getting to know each other, but really right from the outset, as he said, I don't believe there'll be any issue around our relationship. I think we both are incredibly driven to be successful here. The last couple of years have certainly been an emotional roller coaster, frustrating, but at the same time, sitting here today, I'm as probably even more optimistic than I was 3 years ago. A lot of you won't be aware of what goes on behind the scenes. I think the best example that I can give you is 7 or 8 years ago when the training base, or maybe it was 10 years ago, Steve, when the training base moved out to Hartbury. In the lease there were 35 spaces for car park. That's how many people were involved in the running of the professional game. From a playing point of view, we now have over 90 on site every day for lunch. It is now takes a huge amount of organisation. It takes a huge amount of organisation on the field, which is very much what Johan's going to do. But when you know what he's done, when you know what he's achieved at the Lions, he's going to play a huge role in shaping how we're going to change things at Gloucester over the next couple of seasons. Is that... You want to add anything to that? You might have a different view.
100%.
You see, it's working already. We've got a question for the back.
2 points if I may. First of all, thank you, Johan. We don't know what you did at the half time on the Scarlets match, because they were a different team in the second half. So whatever you said, whatever you did, please carry on doing it. The other one is a question about the stadium. It is very frustrating as a season ticket holder to find people coming up during the course of play and standing in the gangways, wondering what to do, wondering where to sit, wondering which row they should be in. If you go to Bath, there are signs there saying no entry during play. There are stewards at the top that stop you. If you go to a golf stadium, you're not allowed to go on the stands during play. Why can't we do the same here?
Yeah, good question. Is Helen in the room? We are, aren't we? Yes. Helen, do you want to answer this one? Helen Rowe, by the way, is head of marketing, comms, media. Wonderful, wonderful person. She's going to answer this question for you.
Hello. I think you've raised a really good point. I'm not using this as an excuse, but I am still quite new, but we are definitely looking at a lot of our directional signage and also how we communicate things during any match. So I'm really pleased to hear what you've just said, but also I'm and our team is very open to hearing about this, because if we don't hear it, we can't help make changes. We can't fix everything. We can't fix everyone to a seat, but we will definitely consider what you've said, and I'm very happy for you to be in touch with me.
Okay, Helen, just in front of you, back to your rows.
Stephen, how have you justified the price increase on the tickets? I know it's not going to affect most of us here because we're season ticket holders, but don't you worry if we don't perform, we're going to have empty stadiums?
I guess it's a perception and reality thing here. So if you took across the piece, the tickets year on year, it's a 1.5% increase. It's not even inflationary. It's the first thing. But I think that so what we've done is we've tried to categorise games as they do across sport generally, A, B, C, D, etc. The reality is that the 4 premium games we've put the prices up. Majority of games have gone up by very little, if anything at all, and a number of the games, the lower tier games, Anglo-Welsh and some of the Challenge Cup games have actually gone down in price. Our most expensive ticket is the 7th ranked highest in the Premiership. Our cheaper tickets are the 2nd cheapest in the whole of the Premiership. So I think the fact of the matter is that I can't run this business, or we as a group can't run this business every single year by doing nothing with prices. To Martin's point earlier, or whoever spoke about it, we just added £1 million to the bottom line cost base just on the playing group. You add in everything else that we have to do in terms of what we spend as a business. There's physically no way that we can continue to keep prices on hold, or very, very little change. Now, the master plan, because we'll all be honest in this room, was, I've been here before seasons now. I was expecting to be riding high within the top 6 by now, and maybe that's the reality of it. So the planned increases were really and only tiny, remember, we're always going to be planned in at a time when I thought that the emotional intelligence would say, well, we can kind of justify it now, we're in the Champions Cup, etc., etc. But what I can't do is keep putting those type of commercial decisions on hold. So firstly, I'd say this weekend, for example, which is one of our Grade A, Category A games, we're close to being sold out already for that, which I think proves a point, A, that we've got great support, B, that the reality is if you book more than 2 weeks in advance at your early bird prices, it's still great value. And what's really key for me as well is showing genuine, tangible benefits for being a club member. For too long now, we've been asking ourselves the questions about club membership and what are the benefits of a club membership. And we think there are manyfold, actually, whether it's the club member days and the various discounts, etc. But the key is around price. And we believe that club members should have a clear differential between those that aren't club members. So hopefully that's answered your question. You know, I don't think we've been Dick Turpin at all on this one. I think it's probably come a summer when we've had a bit of frustrating news, which has probably been backed up by 3 or 4 pieces of frustrating news from a perception perspective. And I actually think if we'd probably had a stronger end to last season, and you know, it probably wouldn't have created such a storm as it has, because it isn't as big a story as I think it's appeared, due to the fact that it has been a slightly tumultuous couple of months in terms of our PR.
Do we know how many travelling fans are coming this weekend?
Not as many as we'd like. Friday night games, of course. I don't know if I have to take the M5 on every Friday night, and it's horrific. And we know that even the Exeter chairman, he has a big bus called Doris. That's not a, no, I won't even go down there. He has a big bus called Doris, and they're coming up early that day because the traffic's so bad. So what I will ask you to do is, Exeter will always turn out in numbers anyway to an away game. And what I would ask you to do, especially for the first game of the season, is, I think it's got to us all when we've played Exeter, we played a Welsh team or whoever it is, you know, sometimes these guys have just taken over the stadium, and we've got to make sure that when these guys come up on Friday night, that the shed and all the other ends of the ground make sure that they appreciate that Kingsholm's our home game, and we've got to cheer our socks off for the team this Friday night. So I don't know how many are coming up, but I don't care whether there's 3,000 coming up. There'll be a hell of a lot more of us than there will of them, so let's make sure we give them a warm welcome.
And one last thing, Stephen, does that mean you're going to increase the season ticket prices next year?
No, we haven't looked at season ticket prices per se for next year, so we'll look at that in isolation, but you know, we need to make sure there's a clear differentiation between the two. We'll obviously be tactical. If certain parts of and anybody would do the same, if certain parts of the stadium aren't selling particularly well, then you've got to try and use all of your levers to make them sell a bit better. We know that the shed season tickets always come in a bit later than others, so we know the patterns from the data that we have, but there are no designs to put prices up. But the cost of running a business and the cost of salary cap means that where we can, we need to use all the levers that we can. But you know, I think, to be fair, in 4 years we've hardly done anything to prices, so it was coming, and you know, I just hope that we can give you more things to smile about this season, and you know, we know that if we can get the performances that we want out of the team, then we'll hopefully have issues around fitting people in rather than the other way around.
Thanks, Steve. Gentleman, Helen.
Thank you. I don't want to hold the mic, but you know, if nobody else puts their hand up, I'll have a go. Question for Stephen as much as anything. Do you regret booking Tom Jones for a second time?
Not particularly, no. Tom was excellent. I don't know if that's a leading question, but no, he was great. Has that got any?
Well, just it didn't seem to sell very well.
Oh, okay, got you. Yeah, no. So again, just a little bit of I get a bit of economics. When you book, so Little Mix, you know, it's amazing really. Little Mix had 20,000 people here. There's never been 20,000 people in Kingsholm ever in its history. It sold out, and really 99% of it sold out in a day. So that was fantastic. It's economics of scale. So when you've got all of your operational costs, your flooring, your stage, your security, your operations, your green rooms and everything else, it's effectively a sunk cost, it's a fixed cost. So your next act that you bring in doesn't have to come anywhere near to being as successful as the first one. So we did so well with Little Mix, that gave us the opportunity to bring in another act where, to break even, we didn't need to get anywhere near. So Tom Jones was actually a commercial success. So it is... perception again might be reality, but the truth of it was that if Little Mix needed, because Little Mix were very expensive, we needed to get to quite a high break even for them, which we did very comfortably. Therefore, Tom Jones could come in as a secondary act, which was a fantastic act. I mean, you know, the difference between his acts is amazing. Little Mix, as good as they were, you know, they play to a backing track for an hour and 15 minutes, and that's what they do. Tom Jones is belting them out for 2.5 hours, and you know, and he had to be kind of hooked off the stage. So it was a phenomenal act, and we hope to do, you know, more dual concerts in the future, because economies of scale mean that we, you know, you can take a little bit more of a risk.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Steve, quickly while Helen moves the microphone, if we were to change the playing surface and move to a hybrid or artificial surface, would we still be able to put on concerts on that surface?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hybrid stadiums already have concerts on them with no problem, and Worcester had Bryan Adams in concert on their artificial surface a few weeks ago, and in fact they bounced back a lot quicker. So Bryan Adams played on the Friday night and the team were training on it on the Monday, so it wouldn't have any effect. Sorry? It's not an exclusive for next year, no. In fact, on that point, if you had a better surface, you could effectively have more concerts, because you could effectively, if you didn't have a game at Kingsholm for 3 weeks, you could potentially slot one in there as well. So it would give you more commercial opportunity.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, we have a question
Yeah,
back there.
first question is to Johan. Last season, our main tactic was the box kick. Are we going to see that again? And secondly, is to David and yourself, who decides when to bring replacements on? Because we always seem to get it wrong last season.
On that first question, I can't give tactics away to the opposition. But if we'll have to see, but I'm not a big fan of the box kick. Right time, right place maybe, but obviously we had to score tries.
And Johan makes the substitutions.
So we'll speak again over the next few weeks. For now, I'm safe.
Okay, do we have a question from the floor? Helen, just to your right there.
Thank you. Welcome, Johan, to Kingsholm. I love this stadium, as we all do here, but it's started to look a little bit tired now. When you're looking at some of the stadiums the other Premiership teams are playing in, Wasps in a very modern stadium. I think Leicester and Northampton have made stadium improvements lately. Are there any plans to make any changes to the stadium here?
Yeah, yes there are. I mean, I kind of agree, but slightly disagree on some of the other stadiums. Those football stadiums just don't do it for me, for rugby, if I'm honest with you. The London Irishes, the Wasps, the Bristol's actually probably the nicer of all of the football stadia, actually. But anyway, that's complete personal opinion. I love Kingsholm. I'm not just saying that from a rose-tinted glasses type piece. You know, I bring people to the club drag them down from the Midlands, and I think it's got a real special feel to it. I really do. But I don't disagree with you with regards to upgrades. We probably just need another massive flood. Would probably help. We've actually, just due to the flood, we've just done a lot of improvements in this particular stand, which took quite a lot of the brunt of it. I think the shed is what the shed is. Yes, we could do certain things to the shed, but I think it's quite iconic, and people would start to get quite uncomfortable if we started doing too much with the shed. The stand opposite there, which is actually going to be the Stowford Press stand next year, which is the one that's on the main road, that's a temporary stand, and come the time when we need to start expanding the stadium, both end stands would be the first ones that we'd look at in terms of what we could potentially do. Is Kingsholm fit for purpose? Absolutely. Do we want to improve it? Absolutely. What we'd like to get is scarcity to start with. So if we sell out probably 3 or 4 games a season. If we could sell out 7 or 8, 9 a season, which of course comes from performance first, we get that, then we'd be in a position to do a lot of extensive work. However, we still do have plans to do some work at the stadium in the next 12 to 18 months, including a new glass-fronted megastore at the front of the shop, which completely replaces what we've got now. We're looking at building an inclusive coffee store in there as well, which people can use on a match day and a non-match day. Also looking at working with the heritage guys to put a space in where we could have a museum, which could be the start of a tour around Kingsholm. And if we do have a pitch which is more conducive to activity in the week as well, we could certainly do a lot more from the community and a walking around and joining in and using the pitch a lot more perspective as well. We're also looking at more changes to potentially some of our corporate space here at Kingsholm as well, and some potential other retail areas around the stadium. So yes, we are absolutely, capital projects are key to us going forward. Ideally, I think we tick a box when we say we need to have 20,000 people sat at Kingsholm or stood and sat at Kingsholm, because because our performances dictate it. I can't promise you that's going to happen in the next 12 to 24 months, but I can promise you that we are striving to take the club forward in those areas that I've just said. We also want to be the first stadium which has got fully cloud-enabled Wi-Fi within the stadium for our supporters, with a supportive app which you can use, where you can tune into local radio, you can tune into RefLink, you can download certain things, you can put a bet on, and so we are constantly looking at improving the customer experience. But as you know, I work in a certain way where we've got to kind of work with partners to activate that and make that happen. You know, we have done a lot of improvements this summer. We've upgraded a few boxes. We've had new carpets and flooring all across this stand. We've upgraded the PA systems in here and aircon around the stadium. We've got a review going on at the moment around the whole stadium around our PA system, which we need to do because my friend at the front here, I avoid him like the bloody plague now. Every time he's going into my ears about the PA system. So we've always had an opinion on it, but we've actually brought in an independent guy to tell us, you know, what we should be doing, and we're hopefully going to make some upgrades to that as well. So we've got 50 projects that we're working on. The things that annoy you on a match day around hand dryers in the women's loos and everything all the way through, we get and we understand. We can't afford to do everything at once, and we've got to prioritise what are the most important things to the club. And again, you're going to have to trust us on what those most important things are. But we will get to them, but we can't just do it overnight. Hopefully that's answered your question about Kingsholm and what we want to try and do going forward.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Helen, we've got somebody just over on the left-hand side there. Of course, yeah, that's nearer.
Stephen, just a question following on from your comment just now. Would an improved megastore here be in addition to the store in the Quays or instead of?
Yeah, no, absolutely, as well as, if possible. It does fantastically well for us in there. I mean, if anybody was down at the Quays at the weekend, phenomenal weekend. You know, the players were brilliant, and it was fantastic to see everybody engaging and the kids playing in the stand and having a great time. But a lot of people will use the store as well, so we're very soon going to be selling everything in the stores as well, so tickets as well. So you haven't, you know, when the other half drags you into Gloucester Quays to do a bit of shopping, you can say, bear with me a second, and you can pop off and get yourself something from the store and get your tickets for the weekend as well. We want to do more activation around that with the players as well. So hopefully it will be in conjunction with, so we'll have two, because you know it's a real fulcrum. You know, we're actually the third highest revenue generating shop in the whole of the Quays. There's only Next and Marks and Spencer's that generate more revenue than the Gloucester store. So it's a real success. It's a real success. And we work really closely with Peel on the back of that. Peel are one of our partners as well, and they see the success of it. And you know, the beach rugby at the weekends and everything else. And you know, for me, Gloucester as a city, it's got the cathedral, it's got Kingsholm and Gloucester Rugby, it's got the Quays and the docks and those areas. So I think we're fundamentally part of Gloucester. And I think to take a shop out of the city centre location, which is so prime, would be a shame. And you know, we're quite a big player in the local economy. We had Ernst & Young did a piece for us after the World Cup, and Gloucester Rugby, we bring nearly 300,000 people through the gates at Kingsholm every year for games and concerts and conferencing and hospitality, etc. And there's a thing called GVA, which is gross value added, so how much money we bring into the community. And we bring nigh on £20 million to Gloucester as a community through the year, through taxis, hotels, restaurants, B&Bs, bars, etc., etc. So, you know, I think for us not to have a shop in the middle of the city centre would be a real shame, actually.
Hi, Stephen. Just a question for you. Just one thing that bugs me more than anything is the lights that are along the top of the stadium. We're in the shed, and they shine straight at us. We can't see the game properly. If they were tilted down a little bit, perhaps they would take the glare away from us. But that's just one thing. The other thing was the food that we get in here. It's not what I would like. And I think it's a lot of people. I was there on Sunday, and I nearly had a pulled pork, and when the lady lifted it up and fat was dripping at the bottom, it just put me off. I would rather see some sandwiches and stuff, other stuff there besides what they're selling at the moment. If that could be changed, that'd be great.
Okay. I wasn't there for Fatgate, but we can look into it. Your first one about the lights. genuinely, I didn't know that there were any issues. I mean, I've stood in the shed myself of an evening, and I genuinely, I can honestly say I haven't noticed that. But the floodlights that were put in were put in for the World Cup, so they had to be the correct lux level. They had to be tilted in the right way. Has to work on television, etc., etc. So you kind of put your faith in these people that are the world's best operators for this type of thing for the audiences that are in the stadium. So look, I'll speak with Sean Roberts, and we can get a bit of a survey done from inside the stand. How we can tilt them, I don't know, because it's meant to be for the playability on you know, and how Tilton would change that, I really don't know. But I honestly, we'll look into it, and what we can do on that, we'll have to double check. Okay, now have a look. With regards to the food, again, the food's an interesting one. In a former life, many moons ago, I worked overseas running holiday companies, and I actually went through 5 resorts in Greece and Turkey, and I took food out of all excursions because it became such a complaint, because what somebody thought was fantastic, another person doesn't like, and it's such a divisive thing. You have to provide it, food and drink and various other bits that we do around the stadium. Our concession food is done by Steve Freeman Catering, which are a local Gloucester company, but they're multinational. They do the Grand National at Aintree, they work with Formula One, and it's a tried and tested method, I guess. We've looked at doing it internally ourselves. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. We're not experts in catering as such. We've got great catering up here with Wilmslow Brown. Generally, you know, it kind of is what it is. It's burgers and it's pies and it's pizzas, and we do various other bits within the fan zone to try and give a little bit of a difference. So we have tried different things before. We tried putting street food on. We've tried putting on more vegetarian options. We've tried putting on some more healthy food. And whatever we've done and whatever we've tried, people tend to go back to what they like and what they know. It's a winter game. People generally like hot food, and they'll either have it here or they'll have it outside elsewhere. They'll take their choice. It's an old thing that comes up every single year around food, and one person will say, I'd prefer sandwiches. And a lady last year said she'd like salads, and we put some on a certain place, and nobody took advantage of them. So it's a really, I know, yeah, I know that wasn't the biggest surprise, but I mean, we do try. I mean, we've got the Cornish pasty, the West Cornwall pasties. We've got various other options with chilies and curries and everything else that we do. So hopefully, if you don't like the pulled pork, which I must admit, when we go around and we try these things, I have never noticed it. I don't know if last week was a bad day at the office, but you know, we will sit down and have a re-look at it. But we do find that when we start to go off pat, sales drop dramatically, and if sales drop dramatically, that means that people aren't eating it. But we will have another look at it. Whereabouts was your issue? The gate down there. Okay, we'll make a special. We'll speak to Steve Freeman, because they'll be unhappy to know that as well. But okay, yeah. I mean, don't want to get into detail, but pork is one of the fattier meats, and the fat is quite often the tastiest part. But, you know, I get what you're saying. I don't want to make light of it. We're all picking up at that gate, but yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Steve. Helen, you've got a question.
Follow that.
By the way, it's not an audience with Steve Vaughan.
As long as we don't go vegan, I think we're all happy this time. It's a question for Johan and David, probably. Stephen's mentioned on a couple of occasions that we are paying up to the salary cap. I've got no reason to doubt him at all. It was just a question really with the unfortunate incidents or circumstances where car phones didn't arrive, and then obviously Johnny May has left. Is there any additional room for any more players to come in, whether that's before Christmas or over the next couple of months?
That's probably tied into the first question that we answered around the hooker. We are pretty much at the salary cap. There is a little bit of room that if the right person comes along, we will try and add someone to the squad, but at the maximum at this stage of the season, we'll be looking for one person to add to.
Yeah, if I could just add to that. So that gentleman is actually part of our focus group, which we had, so we discussed a few of these things when we had a small focus for him. On top of that, there's a difference between cap and cash as well. You know, if we were to win the lottery tomorrow and suddenly have £1 million land on our doorstep, it wouldn't mean that we could go and spend that £1 million anyway. It's that the cap and the cash are two different things. So, you know, whether you've got the cash or not, that would only affect your marquee players that you could bring in. So there's a very big difference between what comes in the cap and what goes from a cash perspective. So it does put a slightly different slant on it as well.
Okay. Thanks, Alan.
It's one for David, really. So what actually is the job description of Director of Rugby? I don't mean that disrespectfully, just so we can differentiate what your role is to Johan's this year compared with last.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think if you looked across a number of different sports, whether it's football, whether it's rugby, we're all set up slightly differently, and different people within the organisations will have different titles, but ultimately the jobs still need to be done. So for me, I think if you remember, well, certainly the last time we were asked at the Fans Forum, the distinction was, to try and make it simple, was that at that time Laurie was responsible for what happened on the pitch, and I was responsible for what happened off the pitch. As we said a little bit earlier, with Johan coming in and the experience that he's had at the Lions, I'll be tapping into a huge amount of his experience. We're still, having only been at one club prior to this, I don't have a huge range of experience either, and it's all about whether it's coaches, whether it's the role that I'm in, Steve. We're all looking to expand our knowledge in every job we do. But very simply, Johan is going to be fully responsible for all the rugby. He'll be driving a lot more of the media this year. He's responsible for team selection. My job is to make sure that everything that goes on behind the scenes runs as smoothly as possible to ensure that he can deliver on the field.
Okay, we have a question for you. It's coming from Denise on Twitter, who says she's spoken to quite a few players this week and they all seem incredibly positive. What has Johan done to change their mindset so quickly?
He's a big lad.
No, thanks for that, Duncan. No, I mean, obviously, like I said earlier, you know, the players is important for me, and it's important that I've got a relationship with all of them. So hopefully we'll even know each other better as the months go past, and like I said, you know, I can just be myself with them, and hopefully they see that. But yeah, it's a great bunch of guys, and I enjoy them, but still, you know, the proof is in the pudding, so we still have to go out and perform.
Yeah. Thanks, Johan. Helen, not quite sure we are. Question at the back from the bar.
Yes, thank you very much. My first question is, it's about the finances really, and I, like a lot of my friends, we really very much enjoy going away and being part of the support away, be it abroad or somewhere in the country. And it seems like the Pro 12, or was it Pro 14 now, seem to go out of their way to make it as difficult as possible for away supporters to get to away fixtures. And now that we're almost constantly playing away European fixtures on a Thursday or something like that, it's making it more and more difficult for a lot of fans to actually get away. So my question is talking about business models, and some of the business models that are not Gloucester's model, I don't think, when you see some of the eye-watering losses that some of the rugby clubs are actually reporting, my question is, are we allowed to comment and actually decide whether some of the business models that are actually present in our league at the moment are indeed sustainable? And are they operating under a completely different agenda? Because, you know, if we have South African teams coming into Pro 12, is there an agenda at the moment to make a European league for the Premiership? I don't know, but I don't understand how certain clubs can be reporting losses of £4, £5, £6 million on an annual basis and still for it to be able to survive. And my other question is, welcome Johan, and admittedly I didn't get here for the first 10 minutes, but I haven't heard anybody mention anything about scrummaging. So my question to you is, have you had much time to assess our scrummaging capacity? Because my impression last year was that we probably gave away more penalties in the Premiership from scrummaging than anybody else, and invariably put ourselves under an awful lot of pressure because of that very fact. Thank you.
Thank you for those two questions. Yeah, the very different questions. The sustainability of clubs that lose £4 or £5 million a year are entirely down to the owners of those clubs. And the clubs that do lose £4 or £5 million a year tend to be the sort of sugar daddy clubs where the owners are happy currently to write out a cheque for the annual losses. But the problem with that is, of course, those sugar daddies at some point lose interest, or maybe their health lets them down or their personal circumstances change. So those clubs that are relying on one person to write out a big cheque every year to subsidise losses are running a business model which is only sustainable so long as that person's happy to do that. And actually, I can't disclose who it is, but there's one club at the moment who is definitely a sugar daddy type club where the owners actually had enough. And they're going to run into big problems because they're not going to be able to sustain those losses anymore. And that's certainly something that we don't want to have here at Gloucester. We want to run a club that is sustainable for another 125 years or whatever it's been. We want to run the club properly. And there's 4 or 5 clubs in the Premiership that do that, and we absolutely want to be one of those. So that's really the answer to your question about the 4 or 5 clubs that do currently run enormous annual losses. The scrummaging question is definitely one for Johan.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Interesting question. Maybe I want to ask a question about the European rugby. Is that, obviously I understand where you come from with the supporters travelling with the team, and then we're playing on a Thursday night. I think it makes it quite difficult for supporters to travel in the middle of the week. So I don't know if that's a debate for other day how we can change that. But anyhow, on the scrummaging, I'm encouraged of how the last 2-3 weeks the guys really worked hard. Obviously it's an area that, as you've mentioned, can actually change the whole game. Either you can release the pressure by giving a simple penalty away, and the teams can get out of their half 40 meters down the line, and they still get the option to throw in the ball so they can attack you even. And then again, when you're defending 5 meters from your try line, you can give away easy 7 points, as referees tend to give penalty tries away from scrums that's struggling. So it's been a big work on. There's definitely, I believe, the potential to improve and to be a side that will win our ball, and it won't be a liability to us. So the reality is that the scrum is, in my opinion, is a very grey area for the officials. Sometimes you stand on the one side and they miss what happened on the other side, and they go and stand on the other side and they miss what's going on the other side. So therefore you must be accurate in law and make sure that you're accountable of your set phase. So we're going to have targets. We're going to want to achieve a certain success rate in our scrum, saying that if we're going to have 50% of the possession and we have 10 scrums in the match, obviously hopefully we'll get 8-9 of those 10 right, so that we can play with the ball. We don't want to give away 8 penalties and give away possession. So I'm going to be hard on that so we can get it right. But again, it's in an area where we, on the day a person can make a mistake, but as long as we can fix it, and not fix it on the Monday, fix it either during the match or half time, and get a plan to fix it. But there's some quality players that, if they all stay healthy, all stay on the field, hopefully, like I said, we'll be good in that department.
And can I just add to that by saying that, as a number 10 who never really had any interest in scrummaging, I think, like all of you, we were well aware last year that it was a major issue right across the course of the season, really. But if you think that in 2 games we went into the last play of the game with our put in, and we conceded a penalty which cost us the game, we are well aware that it's been an issue. And that's why the recruitment over the course of the last 12 months has been very much based around addressing that single issue. So with Valra Pavaruskin, Fraser Balmain, Gareth Denman, we've recruited three props who have a lot of experience in the Premiership, who we have no doubt will add some real depth to our squad. With Ed Slater's arrival, I know there's obviously a lot of disappointment that Johnny May left, but Ed Slater again coming in will provide a real backbone to our pack in terms of leadership, but also around line out and scrum. So we're very aware that the history of this place is based around a strong, dominant set piece. And as part of our discussions with Johan really from the outset, we want to get back to that. And with Johan's input and with the new players, I believe you'll see a much better performance in that area of the game this season.
Thanks very much. Thanks, David. Helen, we got gentleman at the front again here.
Thank you. Firstly, how is Jake Pelledri?
Yeah, not as bad as it looked at the weekend. I think there was, and the initial concern was it was quite a nasty injury, but he's back walking around, and hopefully he'll be back fit and playing again in 2 or 3 weeks' time.
And a great prospect for the future?
Yeah, look, I mean, he was a standout player in National One with Hartbury last year. With his highlights clips, incredible. When we went to watch him, he was a standout performer almost every week. So it's now a big step up for him, but throughout pre-season, he's trained very well, made some big physical developments, and I think we were all looking forward to seeing how he could transfer that into the games.
And how forward are the guys leading up to the Friday's game?
Sorry?
How forward are the guys in fitness?
Well, I think we're in really good shape. We obviously had a change in our conditioner last year. We all rely a lot on data and all the physical testing from this year. Everybody's improved compared to where they were last season. And I think somebody said one of the big things from Friday night, I thought we looked fit and strong and powerful. Even in Leinster, when the scoreline didn't go against us, we looked powerful. And I think that's a huge testament to the work that's gone on. Obviously, the programs are there, but it takes the players to work hard and believe in the direction that we're going to really get a real success from it.
Okay, thank you, David.
We do a lot of things right here, but one thing I don't think we've done right for the last 6 months or so has been the ticket office. I find it absolutely horrendous. Is there going to be a review of the ticket office and a new system and that lot? Because unfortunately I can't be a season ticket holder. The nature of my job takes me away quite a lot, as you know, but if you're a casual fan trying to get a ticket to come into this place, it can be a bit of a nose. So can we maybe look at rectifying that?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not the most specific feedback, but we obviously, you know, we get a lot of people coming in buying tickets and all the rest of it. We have had some issues with regards to the changing system. We've just got a brand new ticketing system, actually, a company called Advance, which is a lot better than our previous one. We've just got a brand new CRM system as well, which is going to help us deal with members' inquiries and tickets and print at home and various other bits that we're bringing in to try and bring ourselves into the new millennium, really, with regards to ticketing. So we're always looking at the ticket office and reviewing, and as part of the change to the club shop, etc., we're looking at what we do with the ticket office as well. So if you've got any specifics you can give us, Damo, that'd be great, because we're always interested to hear specifics, and we can trace them back then to who's dealt with them, and is it a system issue, is it a personnel issue? We'd be grateful if you can pass that on to us. Cheers.
Thank you. Going back to the scrums, I noticed John Lafort has been playing loose head. Is that going to be a tactic for the rest of the season?
At this stage, obviously John, we felt is the guy that can assist us in that position, as he has played there before, and technically during the pre-season with the change, knowing a few weeks ago that Val is not going to be available, he was the guy that we felt can do well. And I must say we had a quite a physical and bruising scrum session today, and going into week 3 we get the practical time to be in that position. He looked excellent today. Hopefully he will go into the game Friday with that shape and that confidence. So so it's only we will probably end up back to the tight head side as Val and Barry and all those guys come back from injury. But he's done a good job for us in the last few weeks, and it's great. It's great. A guy like Josh Horneck, the same thing. He's getting slowly but surely get back to full fitness, and he also had a good scrum session today. And he's also a guy that if you go ask him now, he probably would prefer to play tight head. So for us, it's it's good to have that flexibility, but we probably see more of John on the tight head once all the loose heads are fit in and ready to go.
Okay, thanks, Johan. David, a question's come in from Beatrix on Twitter, and she said, as a management group, do you break the season down into chunks and set yourself points targets for, say, 4, 8, 12 blocks?
It's something we've talked about a lot, really, over the last 2 or 3 years. How do you best set targets in any season? And I think there was quite a lot of surprise last year when we set out to win the competition. That was our view. But I think we talked about it earlier before the meeting. Every club, every player who you want part of your squad goes in to every season looking to win every game. We know the reality of that isn't going to happen, but we've got to create this mindset where we're going out to win as often as we can. We're going out to play as well as we can. We also understand that with Johann's late arrival, it's very much a case at the start of the year of taking it week by week. Look, it's continually under review, but it's very difficult at this stage to set ourselves a target except to say we know this club wants to be playing Champions Cup rugby. It's what we've set out really from the day we arrived here, and that's going to be very much what we're looking to do throughout the course of the year.
Whose decision was it to have green and charcoal training kit? Although I like it because it doesn't clash with my hair, I don't understand anybody's going to buy it and wear it to a game, which is cherry and white, unless our reserve kit is green and charcoal.
Yeah, well, I can answer that if you want. Our training kit often isn't red or cherry and white. I mean, I can't remember what last year's was, but the year before it was just black and all the rest of it. So I think training kit and playing kit are two very different things, to be honest with you. You know, X-Blades are our kind of kit provider, and they're excellent, and they know the market very well. They know what sells, they know what's kind of in vogue, and all the rest of it. So I think from a kind of styling perspective, we sit down with them, but you know, I don't think anybody would suggest that we should have exactly the same training kit every single year as well. It's nice to be fresh. The playing group actually had a lot to do with it. So the playing group, the leadership group within the playing group were given a number of options of what they'd like to see from a playing kit design, all the way through to their bags that they take, their tracksuits, their waterproofs and everything else. And I think if you just have the same colours every year, it can be a little bit monotonous, and you know, all clubs will train in different colours to what they play with. The charcoal and the green or whatever colours we decide to use, you know, could sometimes be a theme that will run through. But if you just watch this space, we'll obviously have the alternative kits out in the market in the next couple of weeks, and we'll have those shown out to you. But yeah, who knows? There may be a slight hint within the training kit, but I wouldn't want to give away too many secrets just yet.
Okay, let's just bring the mic up the central room. We've got about 10 minutes to go, so if you do have a question, obviously get it ready and we'll try and fit it in.
Hi, good evening everyone. Johan, first of all, a really big welcome. It's really good to see some of your quality here. So, Lions were a big fan of the Lions last season. The rugby you played at Super Rugby was superb. Quick question for Stephen. Last Friday was a great couple of games of friendly, superb rugby played, great to be back at Kingsholm. The only thing I was disappointed by was the attendance, really. Charlie Sharp was probably, I'd say, one of our top 5, one of our best players of all time, and a local boy, and he deserved a full stadium. Unfortunately, I wonder if you regret slightly the way that the pricing was done with charging season ticket holders for pre-season. I know it's turned into a testimonial, I get that. That could have maybe been done midway through the season at some point, like previous testimonials. And also, I just feel like, I wonder what the attendance was, because on average at pre-season friendlies we get about 10,000, and it looked maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5,000 there max. I've just sort of wondered what this sort of thinking is next season for pre-season's friendlies. As season ticket holders, are we going to get pre-season friendlies included in our season ticket or not?
Yeah, you are. You always have got pre-season games. It wasn't turned into a pre-season into a testimonial. Charlie's been at the club for 10 years, and we always honour players with a 10-year. In fact, Johnny May next year was on the cards to be a testimonial, and that's how it is, and that's what we do for all of our players. Nick Wood, Alex Brown, and everybody in between. I think the crux of this was the fact that we didn't have any more home games in pre-season. Now I'm not going to turn around to David and Johan and tell them that they need to put on an extra game which could cause injuries or might not work with their strength and conditioning programme. But what we did try to do was to explain to everybody that commercially the club had zero input into this game. It was a testimonial committee that was set up. We had no input into the pricing or the marketing. We would help and we would present and produce stuff for Charlie, but it was all to help Charlie get through. If the testimonial committee decided they wanted to do it free for members, they were welcome to do that, and obviously they had the history of other pre-season games, but this was a testimonial. There's never been a testimonial at Kingsholm when people haven't been fully charged, a full charge gate. So again, the reality of it was that we've always charged for testimonials for the players, and this was also for Pied Piper, which was a charity. Was I disappointed with the attendance? Yes. It was 4,000 and something. I would have hoped that, because the prices were very keen and there were 2 games on, I thought it represented great value actually. And I was disappointed that not more people didn't come out to support Charlie, because people were telling me what a fantastically popular player he was. And I did feel that as much as people were, even if they didn't hear what I'm saying to you now, or we certainly communicate that, but if people didn't want to listen to that, I was disappointed that more people didn't come out to support Charlie if he was such a fan's favourite. So hopefully that's answered the first part of the question. The second part of the question is pre-season games, unless they're testimonials, will always be free to members, and we try to give members as much as we physically can in terms of their differential. And I don't think there'll be many testimonials in rugby going forward, never mind at Gloucester, because the transient nature now of players and the way that people are moving on, it is becoming a little bit more like football. So players staying at a club 10 years to get a testimonial, I think will be few and far between. And I think we had about 8,000 or 9,000 here for the Glasgow game last year, which of course wasn't a testimonial. Yeah, disappointed with the crowd, because I've been telling Johan what a wonderful experience we have at Kingsholm. But look, it's one of those things. Maybe we could have communicated it earlier, but I think the very fact that we didn't put an extra game on at Kingsholm was the real reason why it wasn't attended probably as well as it could have been. But Charlie had a great night. He had a wonderful time with the people that were here that supported him, and hopefully we can get him back up to speed, and he can have a fantastic, successful year. Because I've told him the best way to have a commercially successful year is to play well. So let's hope he does that.
Okay, we've got time for a couple more.
Hi, Johan, hello. Echo the massive welcome to you. Really good to see you here.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask, would you have any intention of getting out and visiting the local community clubs, which obviously there are many around Gloucester? And if so, I'd like to extend an invite to you from Hubcoat.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. No, I mean, obviously, that if I were here a bit longer in the pre-season, that's one way that I do believe a pre-season must go, is that we must use that 4 or 5 weeks build-up, change, just the scene where you train, take the players a bit out of that comfortable zone. And we unfortunately could have only done it in the 1 week that I was here. We went and trained at one of the schools where the kids had the could have watched the training and meet the players. That is something that we will look in the future, just to take the team, but also myself want to go out into the community and just see what Gloucester and everything around is. And then on a personal note, if I know we're so busy because it's constant planning, and it's an ongoing thing, even though we're not on the field, off the field, getting things in place, players that want to see you, they want to know where they fit in, why they're not playing, etc. But if my time allows me, I would love to take up that welcoming and come and visit you guys.
I'm just curious, when we hosted the Singer Sevens, we had phenomenal support here, and subsequently the attendance by the sort of hosting club has had very poor figures. Have we just not been approached, or were we too expensive, or does it have to rotate to different clubs?
Yeah, a simple story is that they're trying out a new format, which so previously We couldn't have done it because we were renovating the pitch after we had held it. But then they've tried a new format, which is a national piece where everybody plays over a weekend, and they want to take it on the road to different stadiums. So it's nothing more sinister than that. I think they spoke to Wasps about it, Northampton this year, and depending on the local area and what's going on that weekend, X amount will turn up. Yeah, I mean the Sevens will be back here at some stages. There's no doubt about it. I mean we had some famously good nights here at Kingsholm, and we even sneaked through Try Music without nobody noticing. So that it will be back at some stage, but yeah, it's a central piece, and when Premiership Rugby come back to us and they want a proper night's entertainment, then I'm sure they'll give us a show. Yeah.
Question for David. You gave us an update on Jake Pelledri's injury. Are you able to give us an update on other injuries in the squad and when the likelihood of those players returning are?
Very quickly, as Johan said, Rapava Ruskin is suspended this weekend. Paddy McAllister comes out of a knee brace this week, and we don't have a timeline on some of these injuries. It just depends how quickly players respond to treatment. Mariano Galarza has just a sore knee again. We haven't the timeline, but hopefully sooner rather than later. The one that a lot of people have been asking about, Ross Moriarty, is at the time looked a nasty injury. He's responded very well to the treatment and the rehab programme that he has been on since he's come back into Gloucester. And again, we don't have a definitive timeline as to when he'll return. But again, initially we thought it might have been long term. It won't be long term. We're hoping to see him again sooner rather than later. Trying to think now who else is. Tom Marshall had shoulder surgery last week, so he'll be out for a few weeks. But again, nothing long term. But we'll hopefully have him back to provide us with some potency outside. Is there anybody else? No. Yeah, so Jason Woodward, his has been precaution. He's a niggling hamstring injury the last few weeks, but he'll be hopefully available for selection this weekend. And Charlie is probably a week away from being available for selection. So it's not a bad picture at this stage. It's obviously been frustrating for some of them not to get some game time in pre-season, but we need a bit of luck, as all teams do at this time of the year, to get those players back out.
Williams is back to
again, his isn't anything too serious. We haven't had an update this week on where he is, but hopefully again not keep him out for any length of time.
Okay, time for one more question for the floor. Who would like to have the honour? Well, you're going to go quiet on me now, aren't you?
Done.
No. Well, final question for Martin. 18 months into your tenure as a club chairman, what have you learned from the process, and how much have you enjoyed it?
Well, I've learnt a lot, and I'm still learning. How much have I enjoyed it? I absolutely love it when we win, and I absolutely hate it when we lose. So if you look at the win and loss ratio, you can work out I've only enjoyed about 35% of the job. But I'm very, very passionate about this club. I'm very, very passionate about the game. I do think we have got an outstanding team now running the show. You were very generous with your very warm welcome you gave, Johan. But it's crystal clear to me that we have been able to assemble a very high caliber coaching group under Johan. And I don't think you're going to see instant turnaround, but I think you'll see a very different attitude and a very committed group of players out there who really want to play for Gloucester and really want to play for Johan. So I'm extremely excited about the forthcoming season.
Thanks, Martin. I think you'd like to join me in saying thank you to our panel tonight. Thank you everybody for coming tonight. Thanks for your ongoing support, and we'll see you here on Friday evening. Thank you. Good night.